But at this time, we will ask our presenters to turn on their cameras and unmute their mics. Brittany Singer, my wonderful boss, who is the Director of Programs and Compliance, will be facilitating our Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany.
Thanks, Deneen. Just another thank you to all of our presenters here. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat now. We'll tackle those as they come in. Or if you want to use the emoji feature, just raise your hand and we'll keep track of who's got questions. But if you want to take advantage of having these brilliant minds all on the same call, we'd love to answer any questions y'all have. Let's scroll through the chat here. Not seeing any yet. All right, we got a question about when the video will be posted. So typically within a week after these sessions, we have the PowerPoint materials and the video available. I believe you will also get an email once those materials are ready. If you registered for this session, it'll go out to that group as well. So it should be within the next week or two. Perfect. Andrea says I'm correct, within a week. Another reminder around that, just while folks are maybe percolating on this information, with the PowerPoint, I know we called out a lot of staff members across the few agencies. Their information will be provided in there, but again, if we called out someone in here and their email isn't available, shoot us an email. We're happy to connect you with our partners here, the staff that were called out. We're happy to make those connections. All right, it looks like Paul Workman has a question for GVRA. Paul, if you want to unmute yourself, floor is yours.
Hey, thank you. Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
So Leon, where can we get a list of the employment specialists for GVRA across the state?
I can send that out to you, Paul, or I can get it over to Ms. Deneen, and she can disperse to who is appropriate. I have a few of my vacancies are open in some of our districts right now. So I will get you my current updated list of ESs in our districts. And then once those vacancies are filled, I'll update you with the new list as well. So I'll send it over to Denise, or if you can just send me your email, Paul, just send a little quick communication over to me and I'll get that back to you. Mm-hmm.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Leon.
Mm-hmm.
Next question, Leon, this is also for you. Renee is asking, before COVID, there was a rep that would come into the Career Center for VR. Are there plans to start this back up?
Yes, actually, those are actually part of my plans, Ms. Renee, to, start with the collaboration with TCSG and kind of dive into that a little bit more. And, we currently have some changes and things that are currently in place and being implemented, but the goal is to start getting our people back into the Career Center.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next question we've got from Alice. How does Perkins fit into the WIOA titles, or does it? If any of our panelists want to jump in here, I'm going to take a whack at that. And then if you want to add some information, feel free. So Perkins is, kind of in the same realm as all of these workforce development pieces of WIOA. Currently, as I understand it, Perkins mainly funds the curriculum development. It's not so much a partner that offers the services that we see with this group here. There is some movement from the governor's office to include Perkins in our WIOA state plan. We've had some preliminary meetings around that. So really the way Perkins fits into the WIOA titles is kind of that coordination at the system level. Having things like our LMI data, information from all of these groups inform, the programs that are offered and developed under Perkins. So right now it doesn't necessarily fit in with our core partners the way we have it set up here, but we'll be seeing some movement on that probably within the next year or so, again, at the direction of the governor to really align those efforts, make sure our state planning, is done in a little bit more coordinated way.
Brittany, I was just going to add too, I believe there's some talk of adding kind of that state level coordination with Perkins into WIOA itself. I know there's some like parts of WIOA they proposed changing, and that was mentioned. So similar to what Brittany said, but just that I think it's also like a consideration from the federal level of how those programs work together.
That's a good point. Thanks for adding that, Rebecca. And just for everyone on this call, if you haven't been tracking WIOA reauthorization, which I will not fault anyone for, that's kind of what we're talking about. There could be some movement there and changes around that. Again, we don't really have a solid timeline on that or know exactly what that will look like. So we'll be keeping everyone abreast of those changes as we see them coming. Rebecca, we have a question for Title II. Does Title II have other funding besides WIOA?
Yeah, so Title II has a state matching requirement in the law. It's a 25% match, and we provide that through funds we get through state appropriations. So all of our programs are funded with a combination of those federal Title II funds and then those state matching funds.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Paul, I see your hand is raised. Do you have another question, or was that from before? All right.
Sorry, I just took it down.
No worries. Thank you. All right, we do have one more question. Rhonda, this one is for you. Jan asked, do all job seekers get enrolled into Wagner-Peyser?
As far as a Wagner-Peyser application, I guess it really depends depending on what you're saying as far as self-service versus staff assisted. So self-service, any job seeker who is interested in utilizing the portal to look for jobs, of course, they would register themselves on the system. But when staff are actually involved, then yes, we would complete a Wagner-Peyser application and then they would be enrolled.
Thank you, Rhonda. This next one is also for you. Does Wagner-Peyser also cover individualized career services or only basic career services?
Our structure is very similar to Title I as far as services. We have basic career services, individualized career services, and follow-up services. So we fall under that as well. So we do have all three.
Awesome. Thank you. All righty, we've had some questions slowing down. Any other questions for our presenters before we wrap up? Oh, perfect. We have a question from Jessica. What determines if they move towards career services or the opportunity to return to school for additional training? Jessica, is that targeted at any of the programs or just in general for participants? In general. No worries. I'll open it up to the panel if anybody wants to tackle that.
I would say generally the individual is basically directing that. When we're speaking with a customer, it's really trying to determine and gauge that person's desire to go back to school, or are they job ready and can they go back into looking for another job? Or if they haven't ever been in a job, what do we need to provide? What services do we need to provide for that individual to get them ready to be in a job? So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's really the individual that's driving that.
Thank you, Rhonda. Winston asked a great question, and I think with the transition that we've seen of Title III over to TCSG, this has been top of mind for everyone. So Winston, thank you for this question. Rhonda and Deneen, I'll throw this one to you. Can you delineate the main differences between Title I and Title III?
Well, I know under Title III, we are very specific in our services to, for example, migrant and seasonal farm workers, very specific in providing services under foreign labor certification and job referrals and helping that labor exchange process really. For Title I, and I'll let Deneen jump in when she wants to add anything to this, but I know for Title I, we've always kind of looked at that as our referral, especially if the person is wanting to go into training or they're interested in that training piece, then we want to get them over to Title I because they're going to know what they may qualify for and they have a little more experience on kind of directing that person to where they need to go for that.
I think one of the biggest one of the biggest sticking points and confusion is that Title III had been in the Department of Labor, and so people weren't aware that there was a difference between Wagner Pizer and the Department of Labor. But as Rhonda has indicated, anybody who walks into a career center, Department of Labor office, any of the local workforce areas are eligible. Title III doesn't have eligibility criteria, where Title I does. And so there are basic services that are available that a lot of times Title III will provide, like she said, filling out applications and job interviewing. But if an individual is saying that they want training or more intensive services, then they have to go through an eligibility process. And that's where our local workforce development areas provide that insight or the supportive services. So, for example, and I know that this is complex, it can be complex, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can. If your son is laying on the couch every day and you're saying, get up, go get a job, you need to whatever, well, sometimes they don't know what to do. If they don't know what to do, what's available, if they walk into a Title III office or a Title I office, local workforce area, then they can be helped. And it may be as simple as, here's some job leads, here's how to create an application. That happens in Title I and Title III. Title III has other services, like she said, with Migrant Farm, but Title III can assist anyone from 14 youth to 14 all the way up to 21, 22. And then the dislocated worker and adult, they have eligibility criteria. So that youth or that older person, we can determine eligibility to provide those more intensive services that can include, like we said, education, training, those more intensive and long-term training solutions. Did I make it more confusing, or was that easier?
I think you nailed it, Deneen. I've heard it said, and this is from the federal perspective, they always kind of talk about Wagner Pizer being sort of the funnel into all of these other services. But then again, you have, WIOA is meant to be a no wrong door approach. And so, even though it may make the most sense for someone to enter through the Wagner Pizer bit of it and then find other pieces that they may need under these other programs, we're all meant to be working collaboratively so that, like Deneen said, they come in, they don't know what they need, then it's on us to say, hey, we don't do this bit, but our partner does. So really just a no wrong door approach. Rhonda, this next question is for you. Can you elaborate on the agricultural farm workers under Title III for job seekers and agricultural employers?
So, of course, we serve a variety of migrant and seasonal farm workers. So you could have someone who comes in and they travel from state to state, but they are authorized to work in the U.S. full time. I mean, they live here. They just travel from state to state. So that's your one of the migrant and seasonal farm workers that we serve. But we also serve migrant and seasonal farm workers who come in from other countries on a temporary or seasonal basis. That's your foreign labor certification, which is your H-2A and H-2B jobs. And H-2A is the agriculture, H-2B is non-agriculture. So we're bringing people in, or employers are, who are looking for those hard to fill jobs. And a lot of times it is in those more labor intensive farm work. And those individuals are brought over to work on a seasonal only basis. It's temporary. So in that instance, that's where that migrant and seasonal farm worker population may be. As far as those employers that are agricultural employers, they may recruit locally if they're able to fill those positions. But if they're not able to fill those positions, then they go globally and they start to look at who outside in the U.S. can we pull in to help us with those jobs. And that's where they submit applications for H-2A. But in order to submit an application for H-2A, there's actually the local agriculture recruitment system that they have to go through. So they're supposed to go locally and then they're supposed to spread it up, across the state. Even looking at other states to see what the labor pool is. in order for them to be approved, they have to post that job with us for a period. They actually don't have a specific timeline, but they are supposed to recruit with us. Now, when they recruit with us, we're looking to see if there is anyone that can fill that job here in the U.S., and they're required to hire those individuals if those individuals meet their qualifications. Generally, they require 3 months of farm labor work. But that's really why you see those postings in our system, because that employer is actually required to post with us to test that labor pool, see if we have anybody in the U.S. that can fill those jobs before putting it out there for foreign labor.
Thank you, Rhonda. I got another one for you. You're popular today. Michael asked, where does RESEA fit into all of this?
So RESEA is the Reemployment Services and Eligibility Assessment Program, and that is a program that is currently administered by the Georgia Department of Labor. Now, there is a very large employment service delivery piece of this. There's a lot of career services that apply to these individuals, but these individuals, when they file a claim, they are basically profiled based on their occupation and their industry. There's a whole score that comes up to determine whether they're referred over for RESEA, but it's based on several factors. And if those individuals do profile into that, they actually fall below the cutoff score that GDOL has set, then they're going to be referred for those services. They're required to participate, and then they have to be co-enrolled with Wagner Pizer, and we assist with any workshops, job search. But on GDOL's end, they are actually putting in an individual employment plan. They also are required to provide them a job referral to jobs, and also putting them in that Wagner Pizer application. So they're assisting with that co-enrollment piece.
Thanks, Rhonda. All right, any other questions for our panelists? Give a little time for any to trickle in here.
Yes, I'm typing it.
It's okay if you just ask it.
Okay.
That way we don't have to wait.
I have
Yeah, either is fine.
I'm a slow typer, so I got a veteran. She has a specialized PhD that she has been out of work for 8 months because she just can't find anybody to hire because they won't give her the experience to hire. So my question is, she was thinking about going back to school to maybe pursue something in social services or something like that, something to be more readily available for her to get a job. Would there be funding for someone like that with a PhD?
Deneen, if you want to jump in after this one, I'll tackle part of this. So there is not a restriction because she has the PhD. That's not going to automatically make her ineligible. However, there'd be some other considerations, and I'm speaking from the Title I perspective here of, what's the term I'm looking for? If you could consider her underemployed, or, you know, not utilizing her education and experience to the full potential. There's some flexibility in there to say that, yes, you know, additional training is needed. I think if, you know, she were to enter the one stop, there may be a discussion to be had about some assistance with resume development and like job search, just making sure she's, you know, pursuing the right places to find an employer for her specific skill set. So it would be pretty dependent on her exact situation, and without looking at all of that, I couldn't say for certain. But the long and the short of it is, just because she has a PhD, that doesn't make her ineligible. We would just be looking at some other suitability pieces to determine what could be the best path for her.
And if she doesn't have a disability, all three of us should be able to assist in that. I don't know what her language, English language level skills are, but that may be some of the deterrent of her being able to go back to work. And so at that point, Rebecca's team over in Title II should maybe able to assist and get her into some classes. If she's just having a difficult time with the American job search process, then like I said, Title I or Title III should be able to help as well. If there's no disability, Title IV could as well.
Well, she is 100% VA disabled.
Okay, so all four of us should be able to provide some kind of support. And it's just a matter of where she wants to begin.
And that was, I guess, would have been a good question I should have started with is where do I send her first?
You could definitely send her over to the GVRA. There's a she can do the online referral form, or she can call her local VR office to get an appointment set up. So they can determine her eligibility, and then if she does need to go back to school for further education, then that's something that we could help with.
That's a good question.
Sounds great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Any other folks want to unmute and ask a question or put it in the chat? All right, I'm not seeing any. So thank you again to our panel. Deneen, I'll throw it back to you for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Brittany. So here are our presenters again today. We are also providing you with the individual agency websites if you wanted additional information about the programs. And to wrap up, oh, and I also wanted to say, please, I know that you had individual questions regarding each title. Well, in order to provide this information and those good questions, we want you to make sure that if you haven't already asked them in the chat and you think of them at 2 o'clock in the morning, your eyes pop open and you say, oh, I should have asked this question, then please send that to the WIOA programs email at the bottom so that we can compile all of those questions into one document, and then we'll send the actual question and their response, the formal response in the document and attach it to the files when we send that out, the PowerPoint out. So to wrap up, as stated, we will compile those questions and the ones we weren't able to answer in a document to provide you a future resources. As a reminder, we will be providing this recorded presentation PowerPoint to you within a week. The question and answer document may take a little bit longer, as you can imagine, because we'll have to funnel those out to the other titles and then get those responses and compile those. We also like to request your feedback for this training via our survey, as we are looking for ways to improve these training experiences for you. Thank you again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. Have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.